Hello and welcome to the show. Now, those of you that watch my channel regularly will know that I am not a particular fan of drifting. I don't have a problem with it, I don't dislike it, it just doesn't interest me in the slightest. I think there are a couple of reasons for that. First of all, I have had my fair share of judge-based sports, and I can't be dealing with it. Quite frankly, racing is pretty simple. The first car across the finish line wins. Okay, there can be some rules, so on and so forth, but the basis, it just boils down to the first car across the finish line. It is a clean and straightforward competition. And the second thing is that from my many years of watching circuit racing, is just ingrained into me to get a car around a corner as fast as possible. And the way I like my cars to set up, the way I like my cars to drive, whether it be on games, whether it be my remote control car in real life, or whatever it is that I have ever raced, I don't like a car that the back end moves around. I don't get speed in a car that does that very often. I tend to build my cars, I tend to want my cars to have the rear end completely planted. So drifting goes completely and utterly against everything that is kind of naturally ingrained in me when it comes to driving a vehicle around. However, I will be the first to concede that when it comes to a general viewing standpoint, it's certainly more spectacular. When a car is going around a circuit, like this Nissan is, for example, the Camaro was being driven as fast as I could get it around this particular track, and when a car is going quickly around a track, it does not look spectacular in any way, shape or form. On the most part, there may be some exceptions, but on the most part, the cars that often look the slowest can be going the fastest, because that's how you get lap speed, whereas the Nissan here is terribly slow around the lap, but is looking very spectacular. And as far as, you know, appeal goes to an audience, yeah, this looks more spectacular. Now, of course, when you start getting really absurdly fast circuit cars, you know, some of the time attack specials and whatnot, yeah, they are exciting in a way to watch to someone who is very interested in motorsport, but for a general, you know, general public, general viewing, maybe not so much. The way you make racing more exciting is you throw more cars at it. You have, you know, 16, 20, you know, Forza up to 24 cars going around a track, racing side by side. That, to me, is where the excitement comes in. Not from the hot lapping. You know, your hot lap to get used to a car, to practice, to get faster with a vehicle. The actual excitement of racing, excitement of driving a car quickly around a circuit, is when you are fighting with other cars. When you're trying to go 3 wide into a hairpin, you're trying to make that overtake. You know, you're just trying to find ways to beat that opposition. That is where the enjoyment comes from in racing. Because, yeah, a car hot lapping around a circuit as compared to a car that is sliding around, it is never going to have the same wow factor. I hope that all makes sense. But, yeah, I decided that I was going to try and get out of my comfort zone a little bit here today, though. You see, I love a good challenge. We've done many different sorts of challenges when it comes to Forza and many different games, but I have never tried to build a proper drift car. Now, I have slid about in a few different things, and then the basic skills are kind of transferable. When you go racing, you're going to get car control. We're not as much racing as you would expect to have an element of car control. And drifting, you are just using car control in a different manner. It is specialized in a different way, absolutely, but it is still boils down to car control. So I thought we were going to have a try. Now, I could pick a normal, sensible vehicle to try and build to go drifting, but as you can probably tell from the Ferrari on the screen and the Ferrari that was in the thumbnail, that would not be the FailRace way. Of course, I had to try and go for something a bit different. I had to go for something that you wouldn't expect to see drifting. So I've certainly not seen go drifting, but it was rear-wheel drive and relatively powerful, so I thought I would give it a try. The first thing that I did to the car, well, first of all, fitted off with all sorts of the racing paraphernalia, so roll cage, suspension, race brakes, and all of that kind of thing, and kind of see what the vehicle was like to begin with. It's a rear-wheel drive, relatively powerful Ferrari. The back end is going to want to step out, but it's trying to maintain that, trying to keep that under control. That is the challenging part, shall we say. One of the first things I did as well was to go and watch a few videos by Mr. Aero HD. He's the one that built the Nissan you saw me drifting at the start of this video. a brilliant drifter, and I watched some of his videos where he was building GT cars. I don't know if he's built a 575. I didn't watch anything about this car. I didn't want to see anything because I wanted to try and do it all by myself. But I did have a look to see gauge a rough kind of idea as to how the GT cars were likely to behave in potential ways of curing some of the issues. The biggest problem that I was running into with this car was getting the front end to do what I wanted to. I could get the back end to slide around fine, but the front, I couldn't get it into the corners quite well enough. It kind of kept washing out as well through some of these longer turns. Now, I was starting out with running the car on sport tyres. Race tyres, a little bit too much grip. So yeah, going for sport tyres to begin with. Yeah, no problem with getting the back end out, but trying to get the front to behave itself was the big issue. Now, I toyed around with varying levels of power, varying tyre widths as well. I dropped the car back down to street tyres. This is me trying with the car on street tyres. I had street tyres and maximum tyre widths. There isn't much in the way of options for tyre widths on this vehicle. You only got one size bigger. I think it's 305s at the rear and 275s at the front. Either way, yeah. With it on street tyres, I figured there'll be a little bit less grip, but I was hoping I could get the back end out more, and that would compensate for the problems I was having with the front of the car. It was not better. I struggled a lot more with the car in this, guys. While yes, I could get the front end to do more of what I wanted it to, I was then having problems with the back of the car. Bit too much over-rotation, shall we say. I don't know if that is a technically correct term, but that's spinning out like a moron, essentially, is the problems that I was struggling with a Ferrari. Now, it's, not going to be all down to the car. Certainly, my inexperience won't be helping, but I did roughly know what I was looking for in terms of handling. Having driven the cars built by Aero, I knew vaguely how I wanted this car to be behaving itself. Quickly abandoned the idea of running street tyres, put the car back up to sport tyres. Now, I took away the tyre width. I put it back onto the standard tyre, so it's 255s at the front, I think it's 295s at the rear, and gave the car more power. I figured more power again, trying to get the back end to get out a little bit more to compensate for the issues at the front of the car would possibly do the trick. It's actually got 666 horsepower, and when I saw the number, I decided that would be a suitable place to leave the vehicle, and that helped. That was working with the car. Another big thing that I changed was the tyre pressure. Perhaps one of the biggest differences that we made was the tyre pressure. I put the back down to 25, the front left standard at 30. That really helped with getting the car to do things. Likewise, a lot of the focus in terms of the tuning was around the front. You perhaps wouldn't expect this when it comes to, a drift car. You're expecting perhaps to have to be working with the rear of the car. It wasn't the case. There was, I think, about 2.5 camber on the front, and only, I think, about 0.7 in the end I left at the rear. Everything was focused on getting the front end to behave itself first, because the rear has got more than enough power to be going sideways. So yeah, focus on getting the front end to turn in, focus on getting the front end to do what you want, and the rest turned out to follow along quite nicely. So I painted the car up to look vaguely like a drift car. I actually quite like the look of the Ferrari. And yeah, it's about doing a little bit of practice. I was content, shall we say, with the way that the car was driving. The mistakes that I was making were now, I say were now down to me. I mean, they were all, let's face it, down to me. But the car was behaving in the way that I wanted it to. And if I could get every corner, I could get every corner right. I'm struggling to string all of them together. But that's inexperience. That's just a lack of experience with, driving in this manner. Of the circuits, when it comes to drifting the cars, Lime Rock and Catalunya Club are the only two that I even have any vague knowledge of, because for a previous video I did a little bit of practice with the Nissan. When we went racing with the drift cars, I did a little bit of practice around here with the Nissan, so I kind of vaguely knew the circuits. So I wanted to go and take the car to somewhere I had never tried to drift a car through ever before, and that would be a Road Atlanta, using, I believe, the correct way around this circuit, using sort of the little alternative loop. Immediately ran into a new problem that I hadn't faced at Lime Rock as we go for a spin in the Ferrari. You see, Lime Rock is very long, very fast, very flowing circuit, very wide in comparatively wide in places, and this Road Atlanta part was not. No, it wasn't. It was a very narrow section to try and transition the car into. As I could get the first sort of turn 1 bit here relatively well. You know, I would make the odd mistake, but I could get it right through turn 1, but it's trying to get through turn 2 and then get it into the narrow section that caused problems. I was trying a different line, and that one quite clearly didn't work. Admittedly, I think I was a little bit, kind of turned it a little bit too late. It was carrying a little bit too much speed through sort of the second corner there, and once you end out of position, you are in a fair bit of trouble. A lot of this is all about, I guess, kind of rhythm, kind of flow through the corners, if that... I'm hoping that's making sense. I'm generally sounding like a moron. I apologise to people that actually know what they're talking about here. But, yeah, you end up a little bit out of position. I mean, you know, in racing, a similar story. You end up a little bit out of position for one corner. It will screw you up for 2 or 3 afterwards, possibly. And likewise, I was finding that here. You had to get your car positioned right. And this particular run was by far and away my favourite through the first corner. I actually just dipped a wheel on the grass ever so fractionally. It helped me spin the back of the car around. We got it into the tight and twisty section, carried a lot of, well, a lot of sidewaysness through there, ran all the way down sideways, and then I completely butchered the final turn because I turned in too soon. I turned in that fraction too soon, panicked, tried to kind of turn out of it a little bit, and then got a whole heap of understeer and then bounced off the wall. It's silly error by me. I wasn't too pleased because typically that run was going really bloody well, and then, yeah... Didn't quite work out. I was getting the hang of turn 1 to an extent, although pushed it a little too hard, too much speed on the grass, and then this is again where it comes into. I'm out of position through one corner, and it's affected all of the bits through the later parts, and almost managing to stall out through here. I do get it together again, and I mean, this wasn't over the course of too much time. I think at Road Atlanta I spent about 20-25 minutes messing around with the car, and after sort of the first 5 or 10 minutes, I would say, beginning to get the hang of it. I wasn't making the same silly mistakes. It was now more becoming about me wanting to get a better and better run, more so than just try, you know, just pure survival. And I say pure survival, just sort of pure completion of the course. I mean, this time, that particular run, again, I was a little too tight, I think, on the way through the second corner. I just couldn't carry the speed, and then everything got a little bit twitchy, and that didn't work. But, yeah, on the whole, I was getting a hang of the course. For those interested, I was meant to mention this earlier in the video, I was driving the cars here with normal steering as opposed to simulation steering as I normally would. Sim steering on a controller and trying to do this doesn't particularly work. It's too fiddly to get to it. On a steering wheel it might be great, but on a controller, yeah, not quite so much. And yeah, I would like to think, as I said, I don't really know what I'm doing, but certainly from a replay standpoint, certainly from my standpoint, I was improving. I was pleased with the results that I was seeing with the car, managing to run a little bit wide. A wheel on the grass, I think that's okay, right? You can just about get away with that. Of all the runs, I think this one, perhaps the one that I was happiest with, still not quite perfect, but I was happy with this run again. Plenty of sidewaysness, that is the official measurement from now on, into the first corner. It was, yeah, a tricky bugger. I think perhaps the Ferrari may be a little bit big and a little bit heavy when it comes to this very, very technical section at the top of the hill. I had to have an ever so slight counter. It's a little bit awkward, but it's a lovely slide all the way down through the final corners. And, yeah, 25 minutes, and I was pleased with the marked improvement that I had in myself as a driver in that time, getting the hang of the Ferrari. I then took it to the Catalonia school circuit, and I wasn't a huge lover of the Ferrari, I'll be honest, around here. It worked, and it may just be my inexperience with the car. While it was good at Lime Rock, I made some silly errors with the car at Lime Rock. I think it might have been a little too on the sizable side and the heavy side around here. It may well be able to tweak various settings that I don't quite know to get it a little bit better. The problem I was having is that at Lime Rock it's great for the long, flowing, fast corners. However, here we're not changing direction well enough. Now, if you change direction too quickly, somewhere like Lime Rock, it might get a bit twitchy. But it is quite necessary to be able to change direction on a much more technical circuit, such as this Catalonia school one, because, yeah, some parts are very narrow and very fiddly, and the Ferrari wasn't quite working for me around here so well. It wasn't as nice as the Nissan around here, shall we say, but that's perhaps a given, considering this is, well, the first car that I've ever built. Yeah, there was a couple of escaping the track moments. I think perhaps finding a way of getting it a little bit more... Yeah, a little bit more turn-in, a little bit better change of direction without running the risk of getting the car too twitchy. And I was pretty happy with it. I think it ended up as quite a competent car. And that's saying something. Personally, for me, I was quite pleased with the with the outcome, with the sort of results of this Ferrari. Yeah, I have no doubt someone far better than me could get a lot more out of the vehicle, but I think I spent about 2.5 hours in total with this one to get to a stage where I was relatively happy with the car. I am going to share this tune. I'm going to put this up on my my share front, so if you want to download it and have a go with it, let me know what you think. Let me know if it is even vaguely close to being, heading in the right direction with my general guesswork. I'm quite pleased with the outcome, certainly of the replays. It looks spectacular enough for me to say that I think I did a fairly competent job. That's the that's the summary with that. I'm sure people will let me know if I didn't when it comes to the comments of this. But yeah, I enjoyed myself. I enjoyed the challenge because I do tend to enjoy trying to taking myself out of my normal comfort zone, trying something different, and getting a half-decent result. Am I going to suddenly start drifting? Probably not. I think racing is still very much for me. That, though, is going to be it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.